Hello, everybody, and welcome to Slash Film Daily for January 22nd, 2017. On today's show, we're going to be talking about a bunch of news, including a secret new Crocodile Dundee movie, the future of Inhumans, Dune remake comparisons, Incredibles 2 cast and details, Star Wars The Last Jedi and 4DX, Moviepass becomes a distributor, the new Cloverfield movie, Bodied gets distribution, and Sword in the Stone gets a director. So we got a lot of news because, obviously I've been gone and we've been running, banked shows. So we're going to get into the last week of news that we have not covered. This is Peter Sciretta, and joining me on today's podcast is Slash Film Managing Editor, Jacob Hall.
Hello, hello.
And Slash Film Writers, Hoai-Tran.
Hey, everyone.
And Chris Evangelista.
Hello.
So the Sundance rejects have come back together. Chris was not able to make it to Sundance because he was very sick. Chris, how are you feeling?
Today is the first day I haven't felt sick, but unfortunately now my wife is sick, so
No.
the sickness still permeates my house, so I can't escape it.
Yeah, like everything that could have went wrong for this year's Sundance for Slash Film went wrong. As you heard in previous versions of the podcast, I slipped and fell and broke my wrist, sending me home. And yesterday, on Friday, I went to a orthopedic surgeon to check out my wrist. I had already gotten X-rays in Park City, and they X-rayed my hand again. Basically, it seems like the fracture I have in my wrist is the worst possible fracture you can have without absolutely needing surgery. And the luckiest thing happened was when this happened, it happened right across the street from the urgent care. So when it happened, Ben and I went to the urgent care, and they put my arm into a splint, which has kept it relatively straight. And usually you need surgery when it's kind of like been off the rotation a little bit. So luckily, I think because of that, I might not need surgery. We're going to wait until next week and get another x-ray and see how it settles after the swelling has gone down. But I am glad to be home and not being in the snow and not having the fear that I'm going to fall every 5 seconds in the snow. And re-injured myself. I'm on a lot of drugs right now. I'm not sure if you can tell, but yeah. So I'm happy to be home, and I'm happy to talk to you guys. Let's dive into some news, because there's been a lot going on since I've been away, including apparently before I left for Sundance, there was no such thing as a Crocodile Dundee movie. And now there's a Crocodile Dundee movie that's coming out starring Denis McBride, and there's a trailer already released. Chris, what is going on here?
Yes, so this story, it broke on Friday, and actually today, as we were getting ready for the podcast, a new addition to the story broke, which I'm continue to be at a loss for this. So yeah, the trailer broke on Friday, revealing that this is a possible Crocodile Dundee sequel starring Denis McBride as Crocodile Dundee's long-lost son, who has to go to Australia to find his missing father. And, obviously no one knew about this, which makes us all suspicious, especially, people like us who cover movies. We would have heard about this, possibly. But the fact that there's a trailer, there's a cast, it just seems... maybe this is fake, but
we should say that some things like this have happened in the past, where J.J. Abrams unveiled that there was a Cloverfield sequel out of nowhere, right?
Right,
and,
yeah, that's like the biggest example.
And there was a Blair Witch sequel out of nowhere, but in both of those cases, we knew that the film was shot. It was under a different working title. We knew the cast. We knew everything about it. Like, in this case, we didn't even know anything was shot.
Right. Yeah. Like you said, those other secret movies, we were aware of them as movies, and then they just changed their titles. This, there was no word about it, and out of nowhere, it's here. And then today, news broke that Chris Hemsworth is also apparently in the cast as well. I'm very...
And they revealed this with another teaser trailer showing Chris Hemsworth in the movie.
Right, yeah. I'm skeptical. A part of me wants this to be real because I want this to be a real weird, possibly terrible movie, and I want to go see that. But the consensus seems to be now that this is possibly leading up to a Super Bowl trailer, possibly for Australian tourism, which makes the most sense. But again, I'm secretly hoping this is real and we're going to see this actual movie this summer.
And usually I think you'd write something like this off as a parody, but it's so beautifully shot. And I think that makes sense, your theory that it could be for Australian tourism.
Right.
Jacob, do you have any thoughts on this?
Well, I wrote the second trailer, and my initial gut reaction to both of them was, wow, this is really beautiful looking. This looks like a real movie. This has to be real. But then the moment it was brought up, tourism ad for Super Bowl, I was like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, just the idea of a ad campaign built around Danny McBride being the American who bumbles his way into Australia and it's beautiful. It's such a strong hook for an advertisement. And Crocodile Dundee is recognizable enough that people will latch onto that and find the idea amusing, but there's no way that concept makes money. So it makes so much sense that it's for an ad campaign. And watching this second trailer, I love the idea of Chris Hemsworth in full lovable goofball mode being in a movie with Danny McBride. So they should make that happen, even if this movie is fake. And I do think it is very, very fake.
Yes, and even the poster says "coming soon, mate." So they haven't released a release date. That I don't know. I think you guys are right. I think this is the Super Bowl ad, but we'll have to wait and see. I'm wondering what other surprising actors do you think they can surprise us with leading up to Super Bowl? Like. I mean, they got to have Crocodile Dundee himself reprising his role, right?
Well, they mentioned Paul Hogan on the film's website. They mentioned, like, they say Brian Dundee, the Danny McBride character, is looking for his father, in parentheses, Paul Hogan. So my guess is that this whole thing climaxes with the reveal of, hey, here's Paul Hogan, once again wearing the hat.
Right. There was also a People magazine story on Friday when the trailer broke that had an interview with Paul Hogan saying he is in the movie. So... movie in quotes, quote unquote movie. So I'm sure he'll show up eventually, and then maybe other Australian actors, like maybe Nicole Kidman, will show up or something like that.
I am surprised that they are doing this under the guise of a Crocodile Dundee movie. Like, how many people these days have seen Crocodile Dundee? Like, that isn't a Touchstone movie, right?
I haven't seen it. I've only heard of it. So I only know of the Crocodile Dundee series in Legend, but I have never actually seen the original movies.
So there you go. The voice of the slash
the
film
millennial.
Yes. Let's move on to Inhumans. Inhumans, it's maybe apparently been canceled. Jacob, what do we know?
We don't know anything for sure. ABC has not officially canceled Inhumans, but this begins with the website Spoiler TV noting that if you go to the ABC press site and click on Inhumans, you get an error message. It no longer exists on the press website. It has been wiped clean. It has vanished like it vanished from IMAX theaters last year. And this doesn't mean Inhumans is canceled officially, but ABC's entertainment president, Channing Dungey, did say diplomatically a few weeks ago, it didn't perform for us at the level that we would have wanted. We haven't made any official decision yet about what we're going to pick up in May, but I will say the numbers, unfortunately, were less exciting for us than we hoped they would be.
Yeah.
So,
and I think even IMAX, yeah. I think even IMAX expressed their disappointment a little bit in the series.
Yeah, publicly, IMAX publicly said we were not happy with that, and it got pulled very quickly. It was supposed to run for a few weeks up until the show premiered on television, because the whole idea was first 2 episodes shot on IMAX, released in IMAX theaters. A few weeks later, show proper debuts in ABC. It was supposed to be a big event, and nobody saw it in theaters. It was pulled very quickly, and those who did see it reported that it looks like a cheap ABC show projected on IMAX, and the IMAX cameras make it look even cheaper. So those who did see it were let down. It didn't do great ratings. Nobody really liked it. The critics destroyed it, and the narrative of it blurring the line between film and television just went up in smoke, and nobody's talked about it. Like, nobody's up until now, because a over on change.org, that place where everyone can have a voice, a new petition has been launched where all 14 of the film's fans are trying to demand a season 2. I say 14 fans is a joke, but at this time, the petition does have less than 1,000 signatures, which is nothing. And I find the petition itself telling, because if you look at a lot of these geek petitions, which you should usually roll your eyes at them, they're usually total nonsense. They usually, like, for example, the recent petitions to demand the Zack Snyder cut of Justice League are very righteous. They're very, we demand this art, we demand this thing that was taken from us. How dare you hide the thing we deserve? Whereas the petition for Inhumans is actually kind of sad because it says, we know it's not great, but if the show goes away, we'll never get to see these characters on screen again, and we want them to have a second chance. So it's actually really, really sad when I actually read it, as opposed to being like this righteous anger about how Inhumans was great, don't cancel it. It was, please, we love these characters as comic book characters, please don't put a bullet in their head. So the show is not coming back, but the petition ended up being, I thought I was going to read it and laugh at it, and ended up reading it and going, oh, I kind of empathize, even though this is a very silly thing. But yeah, we'll know in May for sure, but Inhumans isn't coming back. I'll put money on that.
Yeah, me too. I think the most surprising thing about this petition is that there are actually fans of this TV series, or people that want to see more of it. I guess it's kind of like Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Every year, I hear people telling me, oh, it's actually good this season. You should give it a chance again.
I'm one of those defenders of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and I will say that at its worst, it's just a little dull. But it still does some of the tightest, most compelling character work I've seen on primetime TV, or at least network TV. And it's consistently okay, essentially.
I love that praise. I hope that is on next season's TV ads. It's consistently okay.
Consistently okay.
It's a great laundry folding show, is what I like to call it. I used to watch. It was always my laundry show. I'd do my laundry while that show was on, and then I stopped watching. But that was always my thing.
Okay, let's talk about the Dune remake coming from Denis, the director of Blade Runner 2049, Arrival. He is now saying that the Dune remake that he is doing is going to be Star Wars for adults. But isn't Star Wars for adults? HT, I'm a little confused here.
Well, Denis Villeneuve is working on his passion project Dune, which is still in early development at this point. It hasn't been picked up by a studio yet. But he told Fandom in an interview that, quote, most of the main ideas of Star Wars are coming from Dune, so it's going to be a challenge to tackle this. The ambition is to do the Star Wars movie I never saw. In a way, it's Star Wars for adults. We'll see. So he is right in saying that a lot of the Star Wars, the ideas from Star Wars came from Dune. George Lucas has said that he was highly influenced by the Dune novel in making his original Star Wars script, the desert planets, the tyrannical dictator, those kind of ambitious avant-garde sort of ideas, and he kind of condensed it into a much more easy to digest adventure film, which he did say when he first made the Star Wars series, he made it for kids, not just for adults. So at this point, Star Wars has sort of encompassed more of a wider audience. It's not just for kids, but it's also for everyone, essentially. So I think what Denis Villeneuve is saying is he's trying to do a Star Wars movie, or at least with Dune, he's doing a movie that Star Wars could be if it were to go extremely dark and weird and very sort of a little harder to digest than like the Star Wars movie we see today.
Well, I am a fan of his work, so I am excited to see this. But let's move on to Incredibles 2. Disney, who is always on the cutting edge of technology. You've probably seen this in your Instagram feeds and Facebook feeds. People using this Google Arts and Culture app to see what painting they most look like. And Disney used this as a way to announce the new cast for Incredibles 2. Chris, what do we know about this new cast, and what have we learned about the film from this announcement?
So the cast announcement, it was very big. It was a big lineup of voice talent. the original stars are coming back: Holly Hunter, Craig T. Nelson, Sarah Vale, Samuel L. Jackson. But it also announced the new members of the cast. Bob Odenkirk has joined the cast. He's playing a world-class telecommunications company leader who he works alongside his sister, who's played by Catherine Keener. And their bios make them sound like good characters, but it's pretty clear they're going to probably turn out to be the villains. I mean, Catherine Keener's character is literally named Evelyn Dever, which is evil endeavor if you deconstruct it. Who else is in it? Sophia Bush is in it. She's playing a new superhero character named Void, who has the power to divert and manipulate objects around her by creating voids. Isabella Rossellini is in it, playing an ambassador. So, the details of the film are still, they're not, all out there yet, but we know the plot involves Jack, the baby, coming into his own with his powers, and this just gives us a vague but interesting look at what the film is going to be like, and where the direction it's going in.
Well, Bob Odenkirk's character is a fan of superheroes, so would that be kind of in line with what we saw in the first film? Because wasn't
right?
Yeah. Oh my god, I forget the guy's name.
I can't remember the character's name.
Syndrome.
Yes. Yeah. His whole thing was he was a big fanboy. My guess from this is they're going to set it up to make it seem like Bob Odenkirk's character is the villain, but then it's going to be a twist to make it Catherine Keener's character is the actual villain. But I could be wrong. We'll know for sure when the film comes out in the summer, June 15th.
And of course, telecommunications means they could be spying on everybody in the world, and have data on everybody. I'm sure that's like the new thing here. In Pixar, always since I think like Andrew Stanton has cast a lot of TV actors. You have two characters here from Better Call Saul. There's a lot of TV actors here. It'll be interesting to see what they do in this film. This is one of my most anticipated movies of the year. We talked about it previously on the podcast. Let's move back to Star Wars Last Jedi. Star Wars Last Jedi was released in a number of different formats, including IMAX, 4DX. In the 4DX screenings in Japan, it allowed viewers to choose to be on the light or dark side of the Force, and that gave you a different experience. Jacob, what do we know?
Well, it's interesting because even while Last Jedi has performed very poorly in China, it's doing really good business in Japan, where they're offering this really interesting sounding experience. You've probably heard of 4DX by now. It's where you sit in a special chair and there's special effects, so your chair will rock, there'll be fog, there'll be mist, maybe even some heat to help simulate what's happening on screen, sort of the theme park version of the movie. But the Japan 4DX version lets you choose between light side and dark side. And I'm going to quote this from the Hollywood Reporter. The experiences are tailored to give audiences different perspectives based on which side they choose. So that means that while there's still going to be tilting and strobe lights and wind and fog, they're going to kick in and be emphasized at different moments depending on which side you have picked. The details beyond that are a little scarce. I'm not sure that means like maybe it's a little bit more of an exciting experience where the good guys are winning if you pick the light side. Maybe it's a bit more of an exciting experience if you are the bad guys and the First Order has the edge in that particular scene. But it definitely costs a little more money. It's $25 or in American currency, or $28.85 for the 3D version. It's one of those things where you don't see this kind of weirdness happening stateside. I don't know if this is the kind of experience that would catch on in North America, or at least amongst American audiences. But I love this exists. I love that it's in Japan. And as our own Ben Pearson wrote in this article, it's probably not the way you want to see the movie for the first time, but when you see it for the third or fourth time, go pick the side you want and get the full experience.
Yeah, I've talked a bit about 4DX on this podcast and the Slash Filmcast in the past. I've tried it multiple times. It's not a great experience. In so much as I think it could be a cool experience if the features of it were used sparingly and to some effect. But I think, since you're paying $25, I think they want to, throw in as many effects in every single scene as possible, and it's kind of more distracting than anything else. But the thing about this that I think interests me is the idea that we could all go to the same movie in the same movie theater and have different experiences, or have two different experiences based on where we're sitting. I don't think that has ever happened before. I mean, I do remember, Kevin Smith and some other filmmakers have released commentary tracks on MP3 that you could bring into the movie theater, like, the second or third week of release. And I remember, people wearing their headphones in in like Clerks 2, I think it was, laughing at parts of the movie that were not funny because they're laughing at the commentary track that they're listening to. So, I mean, that could be distracting in itself, but, I don't think this is going to be something that's going to catch on in stateside. This sounds like, one of Chris's worst fears in going to the movie theater.
Yeah, I don't think I could handle this. It's just giving me anxiety just thinking about it. So no.
At one point, we tried to bribe Chris to go to New York to experience Geostorm in 4DX, and that did not happen.
No, it was not to be.
We've been talking a lot about Moviepass and their plans for domination. They already have over 1.5 million subscribers, and we've been talking about how they're making money by advertising movies to get more people to see those movies. And now it seems like they're going to be entering the distribution game. HT, what do we know?
Yeah, so in a bold move, Moviepass has formed a new venture called Moviepass Ventures, which is a subsidiary founded to co-acquire films with film distributors. So this means that it will be going to festivals such as Sundance and acquiring them alongside other film studios or distributors, which is a bold move for the subscription service, which we all kind of assumed, I think, would be going into the streaming service next, but instead is now going in the opposite direction and trying to put more movies into theaters, which seems actually like it would benefit them in the long run. So we've seen how they've recently been trying to advertise movies like I, Tonya and indie films like Three Billboards Outside of Ebbing, Missouri, Call Me By Your Name, and The Shape of Water to its users. And apparently this has been sort of their dry run for seeing how they can take steps into the film acquisition market and see how much of the domestic box office they would be purchasing if they were to heavily market these films. So they will be starting with Sundance Film Festival in co-acquiring these films, and they're going to be moving on to South by Southwest next.
Now, to me, this doesn't make any sense because they already have these subscribers.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I guess maybe they're turning into the Netflix distribution model of, they're acquiring content and getting their subscribers to go to that content. I mean, what do you guys think? Jacob, Chris, do you guys have any thoughts on this?
I think it's a really good way to lose more money.
Yeah, my question is, where are they getting all this money to help buy movies at film festivals? Because we know that this isn't the current model that they're at isn't very substantial in the long run. So I'm not really sure how they have enough cash to help acquire these films.
Yeah. I mean, they haven't even figured out customer service yet. I don't know how they're going to figure this out. Like, there are people who, haven't even received their cards yet, and they've paid for them months ago. This seems like they're putting the cart before the horse here. They should probably work on other things before they launch into this, but I don't know.
I'm just wondering, how much do you think these smaller, indie movies cost to acquire theatrical distribution rights to? Like, do you think, like, if you acquire a documentary at Sundance, we always hear about these $1 million deals, but those are like, big films with big actors. do you think like, a small documentary, is acquired for, $20,000? Like, in that much, maybe it isn't that much money to acquire these films, but yeah, I just don't get the end game here. I mean, I don't get it.
Yeah, they say in their statement with this announcement that this will provide more downstream revenue theatrically and in streaming. So it seems like they think there'll be some sort of trickle down effect if they, if they invest more in the theatrical runs of these movies, then they'll get more money in the long run. But I'm not really sure what the strategy is there.
It sounds bonkers. It sounds. I don't know what they're trying. It sounds like a completely ill-fated move. I mean, I wish them best. Moviepass, we like you. We like you a lot, but please be careful. Don't ruin your core system because you want to be a big boy like this. It's not cool.
Well, the whole new Silicon Valley thing is building a subscriber base, and you don't need to be making money. You can be losing lots of money. It's just you need to have like millions and millions of people that are giving you money. So I'm wondering if they're trying to do the same thing from a theatrical distribution standpoint, if they think they can become a mega power in a movie studio by releasing these films that a lot of people are seeing, but still be losing money. I don't know. It doesn't make any sense. It just doesn't make any sense to me. I don't know. But let's talk about the new Cloverfield sequel, which was called God Particle. It's been delayed 4-5 times maybe. The viral ARG has heated up. Chris, what is going on right now with the Cloverfield sequel?
Yeah, so the viral marketing for the third Cloverfield movie is starting up again. Just like the viral marketing for the previous two movies, it's cool to think about. It's neat that it's out there, but ultimately it's going to have very little to do with the film itself. So far there's been 2 websites found. You can get the URLs for them on /film.com. But they don't really give away much. They're really encrypted messages. I mean, one is just a landing page, and the other is a bunch of like staticky imagery with a garbled message in the background. And on Reddit, people are poring over this. They're just deconstructing it like it's the Zapruder film. They're playing all the angles, and it's fun. I do appreciate that. I do like reading it, but as anyone remembers the previous 2 Cloverfield movies and the viral marketing for that, it's going to ultimately play very little in the actual movie. I mean, this is probably just leading up to an eventual trailer for the film, which is going to be due out any day now, since the film is supposed to come out in April.
And we don't even have a title for this film, but people have spotted a new title for this movie. HT, what could this movie be called?
Yeah, speaking of Reddit sleuths, they have there's a new Reddit thread that posits the potential title for this untitled third Cloverfield movie will be Cloverfield Station. So this is based off of a Redditor who discovered an FX lighting artist named Ray Zhu on LinkedIn, who listed under his credits Cloverfield Station. And this could be chalked up to sort of unsubstantiated rumors, but then a Facebook and Instagram account have also been discovered for the title, as well as domains for cloverfieldstation.com and cloverfieldstationmovie.com. But at the same time, we should take this all with a grain of salt, because mischievous internet users might have created these domain names or claimed these domain names after the Reddit thread went up to sort of stir things up a little bit. So the actual viral marketing for the formerly known as the God Particle movie hasn't actually revealed the title, and this would be an unusual way for us to learn of the title for the Cloverfield movie, because the last movie, 10 Cloverfield Lane, we learned the title in a trailer about 2 months before the movie's release. And the original Cloverfield movie, Cloverfield was actually a working title for it, but then the hype for around that teaser trailer grew so much that they ended up keeping that original title. So it would be very strange if we learned that the title would be Cloverfield Station through a LinkedIn post, but I wouldn't put it past the marketing team behind Cloverfield to just kind of be very closed off with the secrets around this movie. And it does make sense, actually, for this film to be titled Cloverfield Station, if a bit on the nose, because it takes place, supposedly, based on the original script that was bought by Bad Robot Productions. It takes place in a space station above Earth, where the astronauts find that Earth has surprisingly vanished. So it would be a title that makes sense, but it wouldn't have quite the punch that the God Particle has.
Yeah, we're going to have to find out, but I think Chris is right. I think we're going to see a trailer for this in the coming days or weeks, because the movie is still coming out slowly, quickly. It keeps on getting delayed, but it's fastly approaching us yet again. Let's jump ahead to Disney's live action movies. They're trying to adapt all of their animated classics, in quotation marks, into live action movies, and the latest is Sword in the Stone, which has gotten a director. Chris, tell us about it.
Yeah, so Juan Carlos Fresnadillo, I'm probably pronouncing that wrong, and if so, I apologize profusely. He directed 28 Weeks Later, the sequel to 28 Days Later, and he has been hired to direct the live-action Disney Sword in the Stone, which is, of course, a retelling of the legend of King Arthur pulling Excalibur from the stone. I'm actually, even though Disney is slowly but surely remaking all their animated films, I'm surprised they're going with this, because we just had a King Arthur movie directed by Guy Ritchie, who is directing the live-action Aladdin right now, and it did not do well at the box office. It bombed, as a matter of fact. So it's kind of strange that they would go ahead with another King Arthur movie, but I guess Disney is very confident since all their movies are hits. So I guess they feel like they're confident enough that they can get away from the stink of that previous King Arthur movie.
Yeah, but that King Arthur movie was, I never saw it, but I assume it was, a serious take on the property, and it was.
I don't know how serious I would call it. I saw it recently. It's very goofy, but yeah, I see what you're saying. It was geared more towards adults, I guess. Yeah.
I'm betting that this film will have like some CG animals, and we'll have the comic relief character played by Johnny Depp or someone like him. But I don't know. We'll have to see. It does seem weird, a weird choice in director for this property. Were either of you fans of 28 Weeks Later?
I really liked it, actually. I liked 28 Days Later, and I thought 28 Weeks Later was a surprisingly good sequel. Because I didn't really think... When I saw 28 Days Later, I didn't think, oh, that needs a sequel. But when I saw the sequel, I was like, oh, that's a very impressive way to do a sequel to this film. But it's true that this director has only really made very dark films, so it is weird that they would go after him for this unless they want to make this a very dark adaptation. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a strange choice, although I will say that the Disney adaptation of Sword in the Stone, I think, is actually a more loyal telling of the King Arthur tale rather than the King Arthur Guy Ritchie movie that we saw, because that was sort of more revisionist. Sword in the Stone is more, I guess, I don't want to say canonical, but it's an actual Arthurian tale. So, yeah, we'll see. I don't know what the 28 Weeks Later director will bring to it. It'll be an interesting take, I hope, because I like when the Disney adaptations do something fresh with their movies rather than doing something verbatim.
Yeah, for sure. And one of Jacob's favorite movies of 2017 has finally been acquired. Jacob, tell us about it.
Well, the film is Joseph Kahn's Bodied. And it's interesting because if it was released in 2017, it would have been in my top 10. And it would have been serious contention for the number one spot. It's that good. And it won the Audience Award at the Toronto Film Festival, it won the Audience Award at Fantastic Fest, and won the Audience Award at AFI Fest. So it's a movie that audiences love, and I saw it with the crowd, and it was an incredible experience. So it's weird that it's been bought by YouTube.
Wait, why has this movie taken so long? If it's such an audience favorite, if it's such a home run, why is so few people? Why is no studio willing to pick this up, and it has to land in the lap of YouTube?
At the risk of being a little coarse, it's because it has huge, gigantic balls. It is. I apologize for that, but it is one of the nerviest, bravest, most gleefully offensive movies I've ever seen. The basic gist of it is about a progressive, upper-class, white college student who starts studying the world of underground rap battles and becomes really interested in writing a thesis paper on it, and gets involved and learns he's actually really, really good at underground rap battling. And it sounds like a kind of a way to have like sort of a cliched, oh, look at this white guy learn how to be black storyline, which we've seen before, but ends up just opening the door for being a movie about free speech, what it is, how we allow it, how progressive, how people act progressive are sometimes toxic in the way they try to be ahead of the times. It's about race, about sexuality, it's about gender, and nothing is off limits. The movie goes after everything while at the same time being open to all concepts. It is just this, I described it before as a Molotov cocktail movie. It's just picking up this explosive and throwing it at everything that we don't want to talk about. Whatever that is, it's tackled in this movie, and it's done really stylishly, and it's really funny, and it manages to get you standing up and cheering in one scene, like cringing, like wanting to crawl inside yourself in the next scene. I don't want to say, I don't know how much I can say, because I want to see it again before I can speak too much about it, because it's such a minefield, of stuff that most movies are afraid to even go near. And it is a fascinating, funny movie, and YouTube is saying they're going to give it a theatrical release. They haven't specified when or how large before they release it on YouTube Red. So my suggestion is that if it is playing near you, go see it with an audience. This is a movie that you need to see with a group of people who are going to be cheering and laughing and screaming and gasping. And if you do watch on YouTube, get it on a big screen as you can, and bring in a lot of friends. I do feel like YouTube is actually kind of a canny move, because so much of the movie is about artists who find their fame on YouTube, people whose rap battles or skills have become viral or make them social media sensations. So it actually ties in very closely to that culture. And I think that people who are actually possibly in this culture in real life may actually find something to appreciate in that. But if you have the chance, don't watch this on your computer, watch it in a theater. But at the same time, if every other distributor in town didn't want to touch this because they were scared of it, all hats off to YouTube, because it's that good, and it's also that risky.
And that does it for today's news. Where can we find more of your work online, Jacob?
I'm on slashfilm.com every single day, and I'm on Twitter at Jacob S. Hall.
How about you, HT?
You can find me at slashfilm.com, and I'm on Twitter at HTranBuoy.
And Chris, where can we find you?
I am also at slashfilm.com. What a coincidence. I'm also on Twitter at Evangelista413.
You can find me at /film on Twitter. By the way, thank you for all the hundreds of well wishes, get well, everything I've received on social media. It's been very heartwarming to have that kind of response from you guys. You can find all the stories we talked about today on slashfilm.com. You can find this podcast, Slashfilm Daily, published on iTunes, Google Play, Overcast, all the popular podcast apps every weekday. Please feel free to send us an email at peter@slashfilm.com. Send us your feedback, questions for the mailbag, comments, concerns right there. And please leave your general geographic location along with the email in case we mention it on the air. Please go rate and review this podcast on iTunes. That helps us out quite a bit. Tell your friends, and we will see you tomorrow.